In the year 2077, the virtual game Apocalypse became a reality. The world's order collapsed, and Earth turned into a living hell. Humans began awakening supernatural abilities. In this chaotic world, Zhang City's richest playboy, Ye Xiao, managed to protect Qin Yanran at all costs. He spent a fortune hiring 10 experts to help her level up, ensuring she had access to the best resources. He spared no expense, even depleting his entire fortune to buy a divine artifact for Qin Yanran. Whenever valuable opportunities or equipment appeared, Ye Xiao immediately handed them over to her. Thanks to his support, Qin Yanran finally rose to become a god-tier powerhouse in the Dragon Country. Today was supposed to be their wedding day. Everyone was overjoyed to see what they believed was a match made in heaven. Many even envied Qin Yanran, dreaming of having such a wealthy, devoted man propose to them. However, at the wedding ceremony, Qin Yanran smiled and hugged Ye Xiao, only to suddenly declare that she would never marry him. Right before his eyes, she tore out his heart. Shocked and in agony, Ye Xiao asked why she would do this. Lying on the ground at death's door, he couldn't fathom why the woman he loved with all his heart would betray him so cruelly. Qin Yanran replied that money couldn't buy her true feelings. She accused Ye Xiao of trying to use lavish gifts to coerce her affection. She accepted his gifts, but that didn't mean she shared his love. Everything she had achieved was due to her own hard work. The only person who truly understood her struggles was Zhou Hong. She intended to give Ye Xiao's heart to Zhou Hong so she could hear its heartbeat every day. To her, that was the ultimate romantic gesture. Realizing that Qin Yanran and Zhou Hong had only used him for his wealth, Ye Xiao watched in despair as Zhou Hong laughed and stepped on his face. Everything that belonged to Ye Xiao now belonged to Zhou Hong. Just like that, Ye Xiao died, still unable to understand why Qin Yanran had betrayed him after he sacrificed everything for her. His heart was filled with fury. He refused to let things end this way. He wanted them to pay for what they had done. In the midst of his rage, Ye Xiao suddenly opened his eyes and found himself in a familiar place. Qin Yanran was standing before him, shouting at him. She demanded a little more of his money, claiming she was only taking it to preserve his dignity, and warned him never to bother her again if he continued clinging to her. Ye Xiao barely registered her words. He was too shocked. Had he been reincarnated? It dawned on him that he was now back in the week before Apocalypse descended. There were 200,000 yuan on his card, the monthly allowance he used to give Qin Yanran. Recognizing the scene unfolding before him, Ye Xiao realized he had truly returned to the past. Qin Yanran continued berating him, complaining that classmates called her a gold digger for taking his money, causing her endless mental anguish. Remembering the betrayal he had suffered, Ye Xiao glared at her, rage burning in his heart. This time, he wouldn't let history repeat itself. Scared, Qin Yanran asked Ye Xiao if he was regretting his actions. In response, he quickly pushed her away and told her that if she was only taking his money for his own good, then he would never give her anything again. Hearing this, Qin Yanran suddenly softened her tone and asked if this was another one of his tricks. She said that since he had come all this way, she would reluctantly accept his card once more. But Ye Xiao, furious, ordered her to get lost immediately. Shocked at his sudden change in attitude, Qin Yanran demanded to know how he dared to speak to her like that, warning him that he would regret it. Ye Xiao then removed her shoes he had paid for, and told her to leave them behind before she left. Incensed, Qin Yanran shouted that he shouldn't think a little bit of money made him so great, and that he should remember what he had done today. She vowed that even if he knelt and begged her in the future, she would never acknowledge him again. Ye Xiao tossed the shoes into a nearby trash bin, replying that if she truly never wanted to see him again, that would be a blessing. He warned her not to appear in front of him anymore, because he had more important matters to attend to than waste time on her. At that moment, Ye Xiao recalled that the Apocalypse beta test would begin in just 1 week. During the first 10 minutes of that beta test, the recharge system would be briefly activated. He needed to secure enough funds before the test started. He immediately contacted Ye Lin, a relative who had always wanted to buy out his shares in the family corporation. He told her he was willing to sell all his shares. Ye Lin was surprised to hear that Ye Xiao suddenly wanted to sell all of his shares. Ye Xiao explained that he wanted 20 billion for the shares, not a cent less. If she agreed, she would have 5 days to complete the paperwork and transfer the money into his account. Ye Lin readily agreed, assuring Ye Xiao there would be no problem. She was pleased to see him finally decide to hand over Ye Corporation to her. However, Ye Xiao reminded her that there was no time for idle chatter and told her to call him once everything was ready. With his financial problem now solved, Ye Xiao only needed to wait for the Apocalypse Beta to arrive. This time, he thought, I'll climb to the top alone. A week later, the Apocalypse Beta arrived. Ye Xiao quickly registered and created his account. A welcome window appeared, informing him that this was the beta version of the game, which would last for 3 days. After that, the public version would go live. Logging into the game gave Ye Xiao a familiar feeling. This is it, he thought, the starting point of Apocalypse. He chose the nickname Night Xiao and selected the Beast Tamer class. In his previous life, he had witnessed a guild get obliterated by a god-tier beast tamer, commanding a dark abyss dragon. This time, with his unlimited funds and resources, he would master the Beast Tamer class. After finalizing his nickname and class, Ye Xiao opened the top-up, recharge window, and successfully deposited $20 billion into the game. Within the next 3 days, he expected the value of those in-game coins to multiply tenfold. Suddenly, the system congratulated Ye Xiao for being the first player to recharge over $1 billion. As a reward, it unlocked a unique hidden profession called Wealth. Ye Xiao was taken aback. He had never heard of a hidden class unlocked by spending so much money. Could it be God of Wealth? At that moment, a red frog appeared from within the system, casually smoking and speaking to him. Ye Xiao stared in disbelief, wondering where the frog had come from. The frog introduced itself as Ebisu, Ye Xiao's wealth mentor, announcing that Ye Xiao was now the 709th God of Wealth under his guidance. However, Ye Xiao didn't believe the toad at first. How could a toad possibly be a wealth mentor? Feeling insulted, the toad snapped its fingers to show Ye Xiao what true wealth looked like. Suddenly, countless system notifications appeared before Ye Xiao. Innate talent, wealth rolling in, level 1. The most basic ability of the God of Wealth, allowing him to generate wealth. His gold coins will increase by 1% daily. Innate talent, penny pincher, level 1. As a God of Wealth, he rejects all losses. Upon death, no gold coins or items will drop. Innate talent, extraordinary luck, level 1. It's said that money brings good fortune. Possessing immense wealth also grants excellent luck. Innate talent, unmatched charm, level 1. Even the ugliest person becomes handsome when they're generous. His charm increases by plus 150. Innate talent, power of the wealth, God, level 1. As a god, he wields divine power. For every 1,000,000 gold coins he spends, he gains +1 random attribute point, up to 100 points per day. Seeing so many innate talents at once, Ye Xiao was astonished. No wonder it was classified as a hidden class. Although the abilities didn't seem directly offensive, the toad pointed out that any one of these God of Wealth talents could bring unimaginable riches. When Ye Xiao noticed the effect of wealth rolling in, he realized that with his current 2.2 billion in gold, he would earn 22 million extra gold daily, and with power of the wealth god, that translated into 22 free attribute points every day. He quickly concluded that this God of Wealth class was simply overpowered. In his previous life, he had spent all his money on Qin Yanran, but in this life, as a God of Wealth, he was determined to show the world the true power of money. With this golden finger, he wouldn't have to wait to become stronger. Ye Xiao immediately spawned into the newbie village. He noticed there weren't many players around, making it the perfect time to level up quickly. However, starting as a beast tamer was dozens of times harder than other classes. In the early stages, he couldn't tame powerful beasts. He needed a good strategy. The toad chastised him for recklessly choosing beast tamer, reminding him he didn't even start with a proper weapon. But Ye Xiao insisted that the toad just didn't understand. The beast tamer class had the highest potential for growth if nurtured correctly. Just as he was checking his status window, he heard a commotion behind him. Turning around, he saw a group of level 5 goblin warriors rushing toward him. Since he had no weapon at all, Ye Xiao was at a complete disadvantage. The toad, panicking, told him to run for his life, and Ye Xiao, without hesitation, dashed away with the toad in tow. They ran all the way to the main city, narrowly avoiding defeat. Ye Xiao felt humiliated. He had never experienced such shame before. Other players who saw his Beast to Mare class could only pity him, some even mocking him for taming a toad. Enraged, the toad urged Ye Xiao to buy a beast egg in the city and tame a better creature. Ye Xiao, however, refused to settle for an ordinary beast. Confused, the toad asked what kind of beast he wanted instead. Ye Xiao revealed he knew of a hidden dungeon containing a god-level beast egg in a dragon's lair. With that, Ye Xiao headed to the Supreme Hall to hire mercenaries who could help him venture into the dungeon and claim his future legendary companion. However, the toad was shocked to see Ye Xiao heading into the Supreme Hall at level 1. Typically, only players above level 100 could hire guards in such a prestigious place. Ignoring the toad's warnings, Ye Xiao entered anyway, only to be stopped by a level 80 Grand Archmage. The Archmage insisted that this was no place for a low-level player, and politely suggested Ye Xiao return once he was stronger, and had a recommendation letter from the city lord. Ye Xiao admitted he didn't have the letter, so the Archmage ordered him to leave, claiming the Supreme Hall was the Empire's pride, and not meant for someone like him. At that point, Ye Xiao mentioned he had heard the Archmage had recently lost something, and that he was here to return it. Suspicious, the Archmage declared he had lost nothing, and warned Ye Xiao not to lie. In response, Ye Xiao tossed a handful of gold coins onto the ground and told the Archmage to look carefully. Those were the lost coins. A sudden glint appeared in the Archmage's eyes. He quickly collected the gold coins, and his attitude toward Ye Xiao changed dramatically. Showing new respect, he guided Ye Xiao to a VIP room in the War God Pavilion on the upper floors of the Supreme Hall. Ye Xiao couldn't help but smile at how quickly the Archmage's demeanor had shifted. He even teased the Archmage, saying he liked his earlier fierceness. In return, the Archmage assured Ye Xiao that he was now free to enter. The toad was amazed at how well money could open doors. Once inside, Ye Xiao observed rows of powerful Supreme Hall Honor Knight golems, some at level 80 and others at level 100. Even the toad had to admit the Supreme Hall lived up to its reputation. Anyone who hired a level 100 guardian could practically dominate the newbie village. Yet none of these standard golems appealed to Ye Xiao. He considered them beneath him. Suddenly, a berserk blood warrior approached Ye Xiao and demanded to know who had allowed him inside. Ye Xiao ignored his tone and stated he wanted to hire a divine-level golem guardian. The berserk blood warrior scoffed, explaining that divine-level golems were exceedingly rare and generally weren't available for hire. Besides, judging by Ye Xiao's current stats, even an 80-level guardian was already more than enough. He doubted Ye Xiao could afford a divine-level contract. Ye Xiao then declared he was willing to pay 1 billion gold per day, causing the berserk blood warrior to fall silent. His demeanor softened immediately. In a quieter voice, he admitted it wasn't strictly impossible. Rules were ultimately made by people. By coincidence, he happened to know a divine-level spellcaster who might be willing to help, recalling that divine-level spellcasters were incredibly versatile, capable of protection, defense, and offense all at once. Ye Xiao recognized that hiring such a powerful ally from the start would be an enormous advantage. He accepted the Berserk Blood Warrior's offer without hesitation. The Berserk Blood Warrior reminded Ye Xiao that although he could summon the divine-level spellcaster anytime, they first had to settle the payment details for the 1 billion gold per day rate. Ye Xiao proposed signing a contract immediately, agreeing to pay whenever it was required. The Berserk Blood Warrior accepted and said that once the contract was finalized, the spellcaster would be summoned right away. Ye Xiao was eager to proceed. He had much to accomplish and wanted to start as soon as possible. As the contract stabilized, a beautiful female mage suddenly teleported behind Ye Xiao. Her name was Dolores, a divine-level spellcaster. According to the contract, she would follow Ye Xiao's orders for the next 24 hours. Curious, Dolores asked what difficult task he needed her for. Feeling a bit awkward, Ye Xiao admitted he had hired her for a very challenging mission. Dolores, however, seemed unimpressed. She assumed there were no truly tough dungeons in the newbie village, mentioning that foes like the Goblin King, and even his entire family, could be wiped out with a simple wave of her hand. Ye Xiao decided to skip any further explanations, and asked her to follow him immediately. Together, they headed to a monster hunting area. Upon arriving, Dolores summoned a massive firewall spell that instantly obliterated the goblin elite warriors in mere seconds. Ye Xiao was stunned by her damage output. It was as if she was knocking the numbers so high, they might as well be phone numbers. The other players nearby were just as speechless. They saw Ye Xiao teamed with a spellcaster, unleashing insane damage values. Some wondered if he was hacking, but quickly dismissed it. No known cheats existed for the game yet. The only logical explanation was that he had hired an extremely high-level NPC spellcaster. Thanks to Dolores' overwhelming firepower, Ye Xiao's level skyrocketed. He soon reached level 10, gaining 10 attribute points to allocate freely. He also became the first player in Novice Village 9527 to reach level 10, earning another 10 bonus attribute points. Even more impressively, he was the first player worldwide to hit level 10, which granted him 50 additional attribute points, and the special title Speed Ascender. The Toad was amazed at Ye Xiao's rapid progression. Most players were still below level 5, yet Ye Xiao had surged to level 10 in just half a day. In response, the system broadcasted a worldwide announcement. Player Night Sorrow has reached level 10, unlocking the level leaderboard. Other players were shocked, wondering how someone had managed to level up so quickly. Some guessed he might be a game master testing the system, but Ye Xiao didn't care about their speculation. When Apocalypse merged with reality, everyone would discover he was the true god among them. With his new level, bonus attribute points, and the 100 points gained from spending 1 billion gold through his God of Wealth power, Ye Xiao decided it was time to head for his true destination. After a long trek, the Toad finally asked how much farther they had to go to reach the hidden dungeon. Ye Xiao reassured him they had already arrived. Pointing ahead, he announced with a smile, "Welcome to the Dragon's Lair." In another part of the game, a player, currently only level 3, had been relentlessly hunting elite monsters from the moment he logged in. Despite all his effort, he'd barely reached level 3, yet someone else had already hit level 10. Is there some exploit in the game? He wondered. He'd never heard of Night Sorrow before, but the news both intrigued and excited him. This could mean there was a powerful rival worth competing against. Back to Ye Xiao. Having finally arrived at the hidden dungeon, located in Novice Village 9527, deep within Whispering Valley at coordinates 1102-254, Ye Xiao placed his hand on a particular stone to reveal a concealed entrance. As he and his companions entered, a system warning flashed. Warning. This area is extremely dangerous. Leave immediately. Dolores, the divine-level spellcaster Ye Xiao had hired, was astonished by the overpowering aura seeping from the hidden dungeon. She couldn't believe a dragon's lair existed within a newbie village. "How did you even find this place?" she asked, both curious and wary. Ye Xiao explained he had no intention of actually fighting a dragon at his current level. A level 100 berserker in his previous life had accidentally triggered a hidden quest, explore the dragon's lair, and discovered the entrance was in the Novice Village. Nobody believed him at the time, so he ventured in alone and never returned. In Ye Xiao's past life, he'd bought that berserker's battle footage for a high price and learned there was a rare dragon egg in this dungeon. Now he intended to claim it. Both Dolores and the Toad, Ebisu, were shocked when Ye Xiao revealed he planned to steal a dragon egg. Dolores warned him that stealing a dragon egg was often harder than slaying the dragon itself. Ye Xiao, however, insisted that someone of her caliber, a god-tier sorceress, could handle the challenge in seconds. Venturing deeper into the lair, the group soon spotted a massive dragon in deep slumber. Dolores froze in place. "That's a Tier 5 Radiant Dragon," she exclaimed in disbelief. "Even a Tier 3 dragon can destroy an entire guild. A Tier 5 Radiant Dragon is in another league entirely." Ye Xiao's eyes gleamed. The egg of such a powerful creature had to be incredibly valuable. He was determined to obtain it at any cost. Dolores, however, shook her head, refusing to fight. Even doubling her commission wouldn't change her mind. She claimed it was simply impossible. Ye Xiao then clarified he had no intention of battling the dragon directly. He just needed her to buy him some time while he snatched the egg. Dolores still hesitated. A Tier 5 Radiant Dragon was beyond formidable. As she started to walk away, Ye Xiao tripled her fee on the spot. With such a massive offer, Dolores finally relented. "I can only hold off the dragon for 3 minutes at most," she warned. Use that time wisely to grab the egg. She then cast multiple buffs on Ye Xiao, each lasting exactly 3 minutes, and told him bluntly, the rest is up to you. Seeing this, Ye Xiao realized just how incredible and terrifying a god-tier sorceress could be. Sister Tao Lacey unleashed her full power against the dragon, using ice arrows to restrict its movement and draw its rage away from Ye Xiao. With the dragon's attention focused on her, Ye Xiao slipped behind it, hoping to steal the dragon egg undetected. He reminded Sister Tao not to let the dragon notice him, otherwise they'd be done for. But Sister Tao was quickly running out of steam. She called out to Ye Xiao that she could only distract the dragon for another minute and a half, so he needed to hurry. When Ye Xiao tried to lift the dragon egg, he realized it was far heavier than he'd expected. He asked the toad, Ebisu, to help, but the toad clumsily knocked over some armor lying nearby, causing a loud crash that caught the dragon's attention. Enraged, the dragon turned toward them. Ye Xiao grabbed the egg in a panic and yelled for Sister Tao to do something. Mustering her remaining mana, Sister Tao erected an ice wall to slow the dragon's advance. But it was nowhere near enough. The dragon roared and unleashed a Dragon King's breath, forcing Sister Tao to warn Ye Xiao to run for his life. She herself fled as well. Seeing her also running away, Ye Xiao shouted after her in confusion, but she reminded him their 3-minute deal was over. She wasn't some invincible being who could take on a Tier 5 dragon indefinitely. Together, they barely escaped the dungeon before they were incinerated by the dragon's breath. Though it was a close call, Ye Xiao successfully managed to snatch the dragon egg. Outside, Sister Tao admitted that if this egg truly belonged to a Tier 5 dragon, then the risk they'd taken would be worth it. She also reminded Ye Xiao not to forget her commission. Because of this mission, Tao Lacey's favorability toward Ye Xiao increased, now sitting at 60. Ye Xiao assured her she'd be paid promptly. He then turned his attention to contracting the beast. The toad teased Ye Xiao, hoping the egg wouldn't hatch into something bizarre. Otherwise, that 300 million he'd spent to hire Sister Tao would have gone to waste. Ignoring the jab, Ye Xiao placed his hand on the dragon egg. Success or failure, it all came down to this moment. The shell cracked, revealing a small green dragon, but there was something odd about its appearance. It didn't look like a radiant dragon hatchling at all. Its coloration was wrong. Taken aback, they wondered if this meant the radiant dragon had been cheated on? When Ye Xiao checked the little dragon's status, he was completely stunned. It turned out to be a mythical tier azure sky dragon, currently at level 1, yet its base stats were already off the charts. Strength, 500. Constitution, 500. Agility, 500. Spirit, 500. In addition, it had several overwhelmingly powerful talents. 1. Absolute Suppression. As a mythical tier beast, the Azure Sky Dragon naturally suppresses lower tier creatures. Deals plus 30% damage to creatures below mythical tier. Receives 30% damage from creatures below mythical tier. 2. Dragon King. The Azure Sky Dragon, as the supreme being of the dragon race, naturally suppresses all dragon-type creatures. Deals plus 150% damage to all dragons. Receives 50% damage from dragons. 3. Mythical Bloodline. As a mythical tier beast, the Azure Sky Dragon has an incredibly resilient body. Gains increased stats upon leveling. HP regen, 200 per second. Mana regen, 200 per second. HP, 100%. Mana, 100%. It also possessed several devastating skills. 1. Earth-Shaking Dragon Roar. A group stun skill. The Azure Sky Dragon unleashes a thunderous roar, shaking the very land. All creatures within a 20-meter radius are stunned for 1.5 seconds, regardless of tier or type. Cooldown, 30 seconds. Mana cost, 2,000. Dragon King's Breath, a single target skill. The Azure Sky Dragon breathes scorching flames that deal 500% of its strength as true damage to a locked target. This attack cannot be dodged. Cooldown, 5 seconds. Mana cost, 1,000. 3. Dragon King's Wrath, a unique talent skill. The Azure Sky Dragon enters an uncontrollable rage, determined to obliterate everything in its path. Deals Strength plus Constitution %. True damage indiscriminately to all creatures within 50 meters. Cooldown, 30 days. After activation, all stats permanently decrease by 5%. and the dragon falls into a 5-day slumber. With 500 strength at level 1, even its basic breath attack would inflict well over 2,500 damage, an amount no normal player could withstand. Sister Tao congratulated Ye Xiao on his extraordinary luck, pointing out the hatchling's absurd stats and immeasurable growth potential. If this azure sky dragon matured, its power would be terrifying. Overjoyed, Ye Xiao decided to name the hatchling Little Gray. The toad was equally delighted that this formidable beast was now unmistakably Ye Xiao's companion rather than his own. But suddenly, Ye Xiao noticed the toad holding something strange, a badge. Curious, Ye Xiao asked him where it came from. The toad explained he'd picked it up from the dragon's nest. Sister Tao recognized it and wondered if it might be the Calamity Tier mark of ferocity. But upon checking, Ye Xiao discovered it wasn't a true Calamity Tier item. Instead, it was simply called Mark of Ferocity, offering +10 to all stats. Unique passive, Ferocity's Might. The bearer gains unparalleled strength. All skills can trigger critical hits. Base crit rate, +20%. Crit damage, +100%. It also had an active skill called Ferocious Massacre, which unleashed the mark's power to deal 1000% of the user's spirit as true damage to a target. This attack had double the normal crit chance, and if crit chance exceeded 100%, any overflow converted into additional crit damage. It also had a 5% chance to cause instant death. If the target's HP fell below 20%, the instant death effect was guaranteed. The skill's cooldown was 10 days. Judging by the badge's monstrous stats, Sister Tao told Ye Xiao it was likely a Calamity Tier item. The toad, however, insisted Ye Xiao hand it over, complaining that he had risked his life to retrieve it from the dragon's lair. Ye Xiao countered that, thanks to the toad's clumsiness, they'd nearly lost their lives, so it was only fair that he keep the badge as compensation. Still unwilling to concede, the toad demanded 10,000 coins per day if Ye Xiao wanted to hold on to the badge. Ye Xiao tried to sweet-talk him, saying they were buddies, and money shouldn't matter between them. The toad snapped back that Ye Xiao only acted friendly when he wanted something. Otherwise, he treated the toad as nothing more than a toad. Ye Xiao simply laughed, saying that with this badge, cutting through goblins would be like slicing butter. But the moment he equipped the badge, he triggered a hidden quest. The Forbidden Adjudicator. Though mighty, the King of Ferocity was consumed by the abyss. Bearer of the Mark of Ferocity, seek the truth. Find the Fang of Ferocity. Startled by the sudden hidden quest, Ye Xiao wondered what the Fang of Ferocity was. Sister Tao, who knew of it, explained that it was a god-tier assassin's dagger, forged from the fangs of an abyssal beast. Known for explosive power, the fang seemed linked to the Mark of Ferocity. However, she warned that reaching the Abyss continent would be a long journey. Before Ye Xiao could ask for more details, his daily gaming time ran out. He would be forcibly logged out in 3 minutes. Sister Tao opened a teleportation portal to return to the Supreme Hall, remarking that she hadn't expected a hidden dungeon in a starter village to take so long. She reminded Ye Xiao that if he ever needed help with another dangerous dungeon, he could hire her anytime. Ye Xiao said his goodbyes and logged out to rest, since the Doomsday game was still in beta and hadn't fully merged with reality yet. No need to push his body too hard. The next day, at Ye Xiao's home, Ye Xiao browsed the internet for news about Doomsday and found countless popular articles discussing the game's dominance in the gaming community. It topped discussion charts, and players were complaining about the game's difficulty. Many spent entire days playing, but only reached level 2, dying repeatedly, and suffering stat resets. Some posts also mentioned Ye Xiao, the mysterious player who'd reached level 10 in just 1 day, while most couldn't even scrape together enough experience to level once. Many questioned if he was cheating or hacking. There were more serious reports as well. On Doomsday's first day, many players died in-game and experienced severe physical symptoms after logging out, with some even requiring hospitalization. Cases of organ failure among survivors were emerging. In response, several governments had issued warnings against playing the game. Because of so many reported deaths, multiple nations were now banning Doomsday. Seeing this news, Ye Xiao could only laugh. He knew that once the game merged with reality, those countries would regret it, and everyone would suffer. While he was enjoying his morning, his phone suddenly rang. It was his girlfriend, Qin Yanran, calling from Northwa Hospital. She demanded Ye Xiao bring some food for Zhou Hong and pay his medical bills. If he did so, she would act as if nothing had ever happened between them. In response, Ye Xiao ended the call and blocked her number, unwilling to tolerate her demands any longer. Meanwhile, at the hospital, Zhou Hong asked Qin Yanran if she was sure Ye Xiao would come just because she called. Qin Yanran told him not to worry. She believed Ye Xiao loved her so deeply that he would show up the moment she summoned him, like a dog. They seemed pleased with themselves until a doctor appeared, telling them they would have to settle their bill and be discharged early. Qin Yanran questioned why they needed an early discharge. The doctor explained that the hospital was overwhelmed with organ failure patients, people who had been playing Doomsday, and they were running out of beds. Yanran sarcastically asked if they considered poor people's lives worthless, but the doctor insisted they pay their bill and vacate the room by day's end. Zhou Hong stopped Yanran from arguing further. He said that the game clearly wasn't simple, and he intended to get discharged so he could keep playing. First, however, he asked Yanran to cover the hospital fees, but she didn't have any money. She had refused Ye Xiao's monthly allowance. Zhou Hong then remembered that Ye Xiao used to give her 200,000 yuan every month for living expenses, but Yanran stated she wouldn't take any of Ye Xiao's filthy money, insisting she was not some object he could buy with lavish gifts. She felt sick just thinking about him. Growing worried, Zhou Hong told Yanran to send Ye Xiao another message, asking for money, because he planned to start a Doomsday gaming studio. For Ye Xiao, that kind of money was nothing, but for them, it was crucial. Yanran reassured Zhou Hong that once Ye Xiao showed up, she would say a few sweet words, and he would obediently hand over the money. Meanwhile, at Ye Xiao's home, he had been sleeping after logging out of the game. When his alarm went off, he woke up, ready to log back into Doomsday. He wanted to continue leveling up before the beta fully merged with reality. Upon logging in, he found himself back in Novice Village. He summoned the toad, Ebisu, and told him they needed to level up quickly and leave the village. However, in a place where most players were still level 1 or 2, Ye Xiao, already level 10, stood out significantly. A crowd began gathering around him, amazed that the top-ranked player on the leaderboard was right there. People were curious, some inviting him to join their teams, even offering cute little girls in their parties as incentives. Despite changing into a masked outfit to hide his face, Ye Xiao couldn't conceal the level floating above his head. To escape the attention, he ran out of the novice village as fast as he could. Unfortunately, other players, still chasing him for answers or opportunities, followed him outside. Even after leaving the village, they continued pursuing him, determined to catch up to the game's most mysterious powerhouse. To escape the pursuing crowd, Ye Xiao rushed into a level 10 trial zone, a treacherous area with monsters too powerful for the level 2 or 3 newbies who had been chasing him. Just as he'd hoped, they all stopped at the entrance, unwilling to risk their lives. With a sigh of relief, Ye Xiao noted that they weren't stupid. They knew better than to follow him any further. He continued onward until he saw a castle with a guard standing at the entrance. The guard told Ye Xiao that this wasn't a place for someone of his level, but Ye Xiao replied that he was there to begin his advancement trial. Surprised by Ye Xiao's level 10 status, the guard asked if he had a team. Ye Xiao declared that he was going in solo, causing the guard to scoff at his arrogance. Even on normal difficulty, attempting this trial alone was nearly suicidal. Ye Xiao dismissed the guard's concern, boasting that he wouldn't die so easily. Shaking his head, the guard decided Ye Xiao was just another reckless kid. Standing on the magical circle that started the trial, Ye Xiao was presented with several difficulty options: normal, hard, nightmare, hell, and abyss. Without hesitation, he chose the highest setting, abyss, and confirmed he would enter alone. The guard watching was in disbelief. A mere level 10 player trying to tackle abyss difficulty by himself? Ye Xiao recalled that in his previous life, he had tried this trial with full bronze gear and an elite team, yet they'd nearly been wiped out because he'd had to babysit Qin Yanran. This time, he was determined to get revenge and erase the shame of his past. Summoning Little Grey, his mythical grade azure sky dragon, he felt confident he had nothing to fear. Suddenly, Ye Xiao heard movement behind him. It was a level 10 mutated snow wolf with 5,000 HP and 5,000 MP. along with imposing stats: Strength 300, Constitution 500, Agility 300, and Spirit 500. As an abyss creature, once it locked onto a target, it was like facing death itself. Even Ye Xiao felt a twinge of fear. 5,000 HP was immense for a level 10 monster. He quickly commanded Little Gray to attack. The dragon unleashed Dragon King's Breath, dealing a massive 2,500 damage. Little Gray followed up with physical claw attacks that did another 500, 600 damage. The Snow Wolf's HP plummeted, sending it into a berserk state. Before it could strike back, Little Gray used earth-shaking Dragon Roar, stunning the wolf and leaving it helpless. Then, another Dragon King's Breath finished the job. Upon defeating the wolf, Little Gray leveled up 4 times in a row. Ye Xiao was thrilled to see such rapid progression, plus 4 levels in an instant. Checking Little Gray's updated stats, he found that the dragon gained plus 150 tolerance to each stat per level, confirming that mythical-grade beasts grew at a terrifying rate. It even unlocked a new, incredibly powerful skill. The Snow Wolf also dropped some impressive loot: a Blood Wolf Fang dagger, dark gold grade, and a Snow Wolf bow, dark gold grade. Ye Xiao marveled at the quality. Mutated bosses in Abyss. Difficulty seemed to drop vastly superior items compared to his past life. While he was inspecting his new gear, another demonized monster suddenly appeared behind him. Its stats were just as insane. Without hesitation, he ordered Little Gray to engage. After half an hour, he finally defeated the Dark Abyss Tiger. Yet, after such a fierce battle, he was so exhausted it felt as if his legs would fall off. Still, defeating the Dark Abyss Tiger yielded several dark gold grade items, including a pitch black sword, one-handed, and a spiked tiger shield, one-handed. Toda also picked up several pieces of gear. With this equipment, once he returned to the city, he could earn a decent amount of gold. However, Ye Xiao told him that he wasn't heading back. Instead, he wanted to challenge the trial boss and take it down. Toda was shocked. He asked Ye Xiao if he was joking. Even though they had killed so many monsters, Ye Xiao was still only level 7. How could he possibly handle the boss alone at that level? Ye Xiao told Toda not to worry. In his previous life's Abyss trial, the final boss was only Lord level, with Little Gray, who could easily take down 2 demonic monsters. And with everyone's help, defeating a Lord-level boss would be as simple as slicing vegetables. He promised Toda he would show him what it meant to be a pro. Toda, however, was skeptical. They soon reached the deepest part of the abyss. The system immediately warned them that they had entered an extremely dangerous area and advised them to flee. Nevertheless, Ye Xiao was determined to see this through. In his past life, he had been a man of honor, trapped by love and emotions, only to be betrayed in return. But in this life, he was the Abyss Envoy, wielding the strongest power of the Apocalypse, and he refused to leave before fully embracing the Abyss. Advancing further, they came upon a fearsome monster seated on a throne. It was the Abyss Wanderer King, boasting overwhelming stats. Many of its attributes, like health, talents, and skills, were unknown, likely because Ye Xiao's level was too low to see them. Everyone was stunned. They had expected a Lord-level enemy, but instead found themselves facing a King-level boss. Ye Xiao was just as astonished. In his past life, the boss had clearly been Lord-level. Why was it King-level now? With 5,000 spirit points, it was purely magic-based, possessing 0 strength and agility. Its normal attack damage was negligible, and its attack speed was extremely slow. But if any of its spells struck Ye Xiao, he would be done for. Knowing a King-level boss was no joke, Ye Xiao ordered Little Gray to follow his commands precisely. Since the boss was slow, he instructed Little Gray to keep moving and attacking, never to engage in a prolonged fight. Little Gray obliged by constantly repositioning and striking, giving the King-level monster no chance to counterattack or activate its abilities. Ye Xiao was thrilled. If everything went according to plan, they would soon bring it down. But suddenly, Ye Xiao noticed the monster was just staring at him, not moving. He realized something was amiss, and he was right. The monster had been preparing a powerful magic spell aimed directly at him. Toda cried out for Ye Xiao to dodge. He barely managed to evade the spell, but the boss continued focusing all its attacks on him. Confused about why the boss singled him out, Ye Xiao called for Little Gray to help before he ran out of stamina. Little Gray rushed in, unleashing a Dragon King's Breath that sent the boss crashing into a distant wall. If the boss didn't die soon, Ye Xiao would collapse from constant movement. Irritated and frightened, Toda shouted that if Ye Xiao ever dragged him to such a dangerous place again, he would refuse to come. At that moment, multiple system notifications appeared before Ye Xiao. Congratulations, you have completed the Abyss trial. Your beast, Little Gray, has reached level 10. You are also the first adventurer to clear this trial, and your reward is +5 to all attributes. With the boss finally slain, Ye Xiao exhaled in relief. He then turned to Toda, calling him a coward. Toda argued back. If Ye Xiao was so fearless, why had he run so fast to save himself? Ignoring the retort, Ye Xiao approached the fallen boss to see what kind of loot a king-level monster would drop. Meanwhile, a loud system announcement echoed throughout the game. Player Ye Xiao from Daxia Nation has completed the Abyss trial, becoming the first adventurer in history to conquer it. He has earned the legendary title Abyss Envoy. This is hereby announced. Players across the game were stunned. It had only been 2 days since launch, yet someone had already cleared an Abyss-level dungeon. Those from Daxia Nation were especially astonished. A top-ranked player came from their homeland, and his name alone graced the leaderboard. This person was truly extraordinary. Many large and powerful guilds immediately began investigating Ye Xiao in hopes of recruiting him. Back in Beginner Village, 9527, the players were excited to learn that the famous new level 10 expert was from their very own village. Zhou Hong, now discharged from the hospital, resumed playing. He told Yanran that if they could befriend this pro and team up with him, they would become famous in no time. Even someone like Ye Xiao, a wealthy second-generation kid, might eventually look up to them. Yanran asked if he truly believed a simple game could help him reach the pinnacle of life. Zhou Hong replied that something about this game felt different, and that she should trust his judgment. He then asked if she had contacted Ye Xiao to help them level up. After all, he was rich and a gaming expert. Yanran refused, telling Zhou Hong that she would not reach out herself. If he wanted to, he could do so, but she wasn't that shameless.